Hey yo, this is Kyle here, guys. For all you wrestling fans out there, you know where I got that reference from. What I want to do today is I'm going to make two vids, but I'm going to come up with I'm going to do two vids. One I'm going to do talking about the top 10 greatest heels of all time, and the other one's going to be about the top 10 greatest baby faces / faces of all time. And for just a few of my subscribers who I've kind of chatted with, and some of you guys are still kind of new to wrestling, kind of getting into wrestling, the term heel in wrestling refers to someone being the bad guy. The term face refers to someone being a good guy. So, for example, someone like Mark Henry, Dolph Ziggler, The Miz, they will be considered a heel, which translates and means bad guy. Face or baby face, guys like John Cena, Randy Orton, that transitions into the word a good guy. So the word face and heel in the wrestling world translates bad guy, good guy. So just a little info box for you guys there for you guys who are kind of who I've spoken with, and you guys are kind of new to wrestling. So this list here is going to be the top 10 greatest heels of all time. Top 10 greatest heels of all time. I'm going to cut this up into two parts because I don't want this to be like really long by naming 10 guys. So I'm going to make this into two parts. So top 10 greatest heels of all time. Okay, starting up at number 10 is Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper, I think, was one of the greatest heels of all time. Just multiple reasons. One, as a kid growing up, I didn't get a chance to see all of, Roddy Piper's career in wrestling when he was active, at least. But hearing countless stories of, my mom and even my older brother, how they would tell me, certain, segments and type of matches and things, involving Roddy Piper. And then me being a kid growing up and going back and watching all of his matches and his segments and promos growing up as a kid on VHS, his days in NWA and WCW and WWE at that time. Roddy Piper, I think, was one of the greatest heels of all time. He could talk. He had a very, brash tone way about him. I think he was one of the greatest heels during that, 1980s era, along with a Honky Tonk Man, who I thought was also one of the greatest heels during that era and decade. So Roddy Piper is number 10 on my list. Number 9 is one of the greatest heels of all time, is Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho, I think, is one of the greatest heels of all time. Chris Jericho, I definitely agree with, Ryan, a.k.a. Mad Scientist 7890, that Chris Jericho is one of those guys, very few, if not probably only, but one of those very, very, very few guys who always innovates himself each and every time. And also in my personal opinion, I think Chris Jericho is one of those very few guys who is not only innovative and keep up with the times, but is also a guy who could play both sides of the fence very well as a heel and babyface. There are very few wrestlers certain wrestlers, like for example, Randy Orton, who I think plays a better heel than he does a face. Chris Jericho is one of those very few wrestlers who can play both sides of the fence very well. However, I think Chris Jericho makes a better heel than he does a face. And if you really look at Chris Jericho's career in WWE alone, putting aside his career in WCW and ECW, just his success in WWE, a lot of things Chris Jericho has accomplished were always was always due to him being a heel. When Chris Jericho first came in and made his epic debut on Raw, he was a heel. When Chris Jericho became the first undisputed champion, beating Rock and Austin in the same night, he was a heel. When Chris Jericho became an unprecedented 9-time record-breaking Intercontinental Champion, he was a heel. When Chris Jericho came back this year and made his epic return, he came back and going into WrestleMania, he was a heel. When Chris Jericho had his highlighting career match against Triple H at WrestleMania 18 and his match against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 19, he was a heel. So a lot of Chris Jericho's highlighted moments in career and things he's accomplished in the WWE alone, it was always as a heel. So, and Chris Jericho is one of those guys who I think you love to hate him, but you can't help but love him because he is the best in the world at what he does. The way he articulates his words and his promos, and the way he just comes off, in the season, clean cut. Chris Jericho, one of the greatest heels, I think, of all time. He's number 9 on my list. Number 8 on my list is one of the greatest heels of all time. It's kind of a bit of a duel, and it's a mixture of things. It's Scott Hall and Kevin Nash as NWO, along with Team 3D, Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley, also Bubba Ray or Bully Ray just by himself. And I'll start with NWO. Scott Hall. Scott Hall, to me, before he and Nash went to WCW to form NWO, when Scott Hall had the Razor Ramon gimmick, to me, Scott Hall, I think, in my opinion, was the first very early heels where it was cool to be the bad guy, where you absolutely loved the bad guy. I think Scott Hall was one of those very, very early guys to transition that trend, pretty much. And then when he and Kevin Nash joined forces in WCW to form NWO, both he and Nash made it officially cool to be the bad guy. You're supposed to boo the bad guy, but they end up being some of the coolest heels in that decade and of all time, transcending and really changing the wrestling business forever. In that decade and in the 90s. So they're really great. Now on the other side of that coin, you have the Dudleys. Now, Scott Hall and Nash, although they were, I guess, like I said, they were the first ever, I would consider the first cool heels, and they made it cool for you to like a heel. I think the Dudleys, Bubba Ray, and Devon, in their original ECW run, I think they were the first really brash tone, in your face, in your mouth type of heels. I mean, the type of promos these guys would cut back in the original ECW days, they were very vulgar. They were very, outlandish. They got in your face. They said whatever they want, whenever they wanted to you. They didn't care how you feel about it. They didn't care if it pissed you off. They didn't care if you were way down in the parking lot with a shotgun ready to saw their heads off. I'm probably sure they probably did. But they got you so pissed off as a fan, so emotionally invested into them, and wanted to just rip their heads off. They were just amazing. Now, Bully Ray, by himself, currently now in TNA, I think he's one of the best heels. Me in particular, I'm sure like a lot of other people, but I'm also too, did not expect Bully Ray to have improved so much in the solo career that he's been improving in TNA. Kurt Angle had mentioned in an interview last year that Bully Ray had lost 70 pounds. He looks great. He's having fantastic wrestling matches with just about everyone from AJ Styles to Anderson to Bobby Roode and James Storm. He's one of the best talkers / heels, today, now, and not only today and now, but just TNA alone. He's the top heel in that company, as well as you have to put him as your number 1, if not 2, best talkers in that company. I'll probably say number 2 after Aries. But still, and considering his age, like I said, he can go. So Bully Ray has improved a lot, and definitely I consider one of the greatest heels, not only currently, but also of all time, by himself as well as with Devon in their original ECW run. So number 8 is tied with both the Nash and NWO at the Outsiders, and Team 3D as well as Bully Ray by himself. And that's number 8. Number 7 greatest heel of all time, I think, is The Rock. The Rock was, besides Kevin Nash, The Rock was probably one of those first early heels that had just so much charisma, where, once again, you're supposed to hate them, but because of their charisma and they're just so entertaining, and the mic skills he would just cut each and every week on a Raw or SmackDown, whatever, you couldn't help but love the guy. From his days and from his heelish days and in the nation to him aligning himself with Vince McMahon and the corporation and being the WWF champion, and then from him his 2002 2-3 era run when he came back from Hollywood and was acting like he was the big deal, and he was big in the WWE because he was he's an actor now, and he's done everything in the WWE that there is to accomplish. Coming back in that heelish type form, Rock has always been a top-notch heel. I mean, ever. And to me, I think Rock is probably I would consider to be one of the most charismatic heels, because even though each and every time when Rock was a heel and you were supposed to hate him, you never really heard people like boo him out of the building, or they just really just absolutely just hate his guts. I mean, when Rock would cut a promo on someone, whether it was a babyface he was cutting a funny promo on, people would laugh and giggle and just laugh and have a ball and have a good time, just as much as they would if Rock was to cut the same type of promo as a face. They would do the exact same thing with him as being a heel. So I think Rock is one of the greatest heels of all time. He's number 7 on my list. Number 6 is the ultimate opportunist, Edge. I don't think there's any other heel who can really play the ultimate opportunist and pretty much use I don't know what to say. Pretty much, like I said, just take an opportunity, seize the opportunity, and take advantage of whatever the atmosphere or situation he's facing or whatever's being brought to him. He's always able to come out on top. He's the first Money in the Bank winner. He cashed it in, and although the concept of Money in the Bank is, you win it and you can cash it in at any place or time for any championship of your choosing. So everyone's done it, face and heel alike, who won Money in the Bank. But I think to have the type of stipulation that is a Money in the Bank briefcase or match, and apply that to the type of characteristic and persona of Edge, it fits like a hand in the glove. And still to this day, I don't care what anyone says, whoever wins Money in the Bank, even people who's won Money in the Bank after or since Edge, Money in the Bank itself is still anonymous with Edge. Not only because he was the very first winner of Money in the Bank, but like I said, once again, you mix up the stipulation with Money in the Bank with the type of charismatic and persona of Edge, and it just fits like a hand in glove, and it just helps elevate and boost Edge more, just being his ultimate opportunist. From him to marrying Vicky Guerrero when she was the SmackDown GM, and basically really using her and her powers on the show to put him in title matches or to manipulate her powers to keep him as the world champion or to prevent other people from facing him, for his world title, to using Lita pretty much. Kind of, if you really think about it, the way they're using Daniel Bryan is kind of like how they've been using Edge. How Daniel Bryan's using AJ pretty much as a shield and as an excuse for keeping his world title. Edge has kind of done the same thing with Lita and even Vicky Guerrero. So, kind of similar, although I still don't think to this day, and Daniel Bryan is doing a good job at being a cowardly heel, but I don't see any wrestler in the near-time future really playing that role to a T better than Edge himself. Edge is a 12-time World Heavyweight Champion. I mean, it's just freaking ridiculous. 5-time Intercontinental. I think he's like a 10-time Tag Team Champ. U.S. Champion. Just absolutely amazing. Royal Rumble winner. So Edge, to me, is the ultimate opportunist. I would consider to be an ultimate villain. Edge, I consider to be, he's like the Moriarty to, Sherlock Holmes. How Sherlock Holmes is the ultimate, detective. Moriarty is the ultimate villain to Sherlock Holmes. And each and every time Sherlock Holmes would think he's a step ahead of Moriarty, Moriarty is always two steps further ahead of Sherlock Holmes. And that's how I kind of picture Edge. Edge has always been that bad guy who's always 2 steps ahead of the good guy. So this was part 1 of who I think are the top 10 greatest heels of all time in professional wrestling. Leave your comments down below in this box what you think so far from numbers 10 through 6. I'll be doing part 2, listing 5 through 1 right now. Comment, subscribe, peace.